Hey everybody, it's Coach coming back to you, and today we're going to deal with what can be a touchy subject because it's money we're talking about, and specifically tipping on cruise ships. Okay, what's expected? How much should you tip? Should you tip? Should you not tip? Should you do prepaid gratuities? Should you leave them on? Should you take them off? We're going to cover all those things, and let's talk about it.
I just can't get away from a good time.
Okay, so today's topic was brought to my attention by a cruise family member, my first cruise family, non-family members, Mark and Laura. But Mark had messaged me and saying, you should do a video on tipping on cruise ships. I think that would be interesting. And I didn't disagree with him. The thing is it's a touchy subject for some people, and I don't want to lose subscribers. So if somebody disagrees with my opinions on tipping, don't not subscribe. It's just an opinion. But if you do agree, subscribe. So anyway, no, in all seriousness, let's talk about it. And I looked up an article on Cruise Critic to kind of help research the topic and get a discussion going or whatever. And what I can tell you, and you can figure this out on your own, if you've been on a cruise recently, you've probably seen the prepaid gratuities and how much those cost. And for a 7-day cruise, they're typically a little over $100. So it's about $15 per person per day. Now, where does that money go to? Does that go to your cabin steward? Does that go to your wait staff in the dining room? Does that go to the cooks? Does that go to the laundry people? Well, the truth is, it goes to all of those people. It's spread out across the entire ship of people that serve you and make your cruise experience better. So those tips are divvied up across the board. Now, here's the thing. Some people don't agree with tipping. Now, my mother, even myself, we have been in jobs that, were associated with tipping. My mother was a waitress for a number of years. So I'm very much in support of tipping and have done it and feel good about it, every time I do. So I would never remove prepaid gratuities. Now, here's the thing. I didn't know this, and I just learned this in the past couple of years or whatever. But in Britain and Australia, for example, tipping is kind of frowned upon in a way, and it's not expected. So let's take into consideration our culture, we associate with tipping and everything else like that. But if we were to go to Britain and Australia and, we tip, they might look at us strange, like, yeah, your bill wasn't this much, you're giving me too much or something like that. And, that's normal in their country. So some people, it is uncustomary to tip. So if somebody from Britain or Australia came over here, you might see them not tip and say, oh, wow, they're cheap or whatever. That's their culture. That's the way it is in their country. And so, I can't judge that. But until you might judge somebody and say, wow, they're being cheap or whatever else like that. Now, I will say this, in the United States, most people know about tipping, right? I cringe sometimes. I've been in guest services line waiting, for something, and there's been a couple times I've overheard people removing the prepaid gratuities, and it just breaks my heart. It really does. Whether you agree or disagree, here's the thing: the tips. Let's say your cabin steward was terrible. Let's take that for example. And so somebody in their mind said, well, I'm going to go remove the prepaid gratuities. Well, in your mind, you may be moving the prepaid gratuities because you had a bad cabin steward. But in reality, what you're doing is you're punishing everybody on the ship that has served you and is, worked to make your cruise experience a good one. Now, is it possible that you just had a horrible cruise all the way around? Is it possible that you had a bad wait staff in the main dining room? Maybe you saw a stain on your laundry. I mean, it's possible, but the likelihood is very slim that might be the case. And it's one of those things where I think if you're going to go on a cruise, you have to factor in the tipping and the prepaid gratuity. What I always tell people to do is pay as much in advance as you can for your cruise. Pay for your excursions in advance. Pay for if you're going to do the Cheers package, for example, it's expensive. Like if you're traveling on Carnival, the Cheers package or the alcohol package on Royal Caribbean or Norwegian, whatever that may be. Pay for those things that you want in advance. So when you get on the cruise ship, all you have to do is just enjoy yourself. You don't have to worry about getting a big bill at the end of the cruise. Okay, so I think what some people do is they get on a cruise ship and they don't know about the prepaid gratuities. Maybe they're a new cruiser, and usually the way these prepaid gratuities work is they don't put it on your bill until the end of the week. And then all of a sudden, people check their accounts and say, oh, wow, I owe, an extra $400 if you're traveling with a family of four or something like that. It's like, I wasn't counting on this. And then, they get hit with some sticker shock and they go and, remove those tips, which is punishing, all those people that work so hard on cruise ships to make your experience better. And that's the part that breaks my heart. I can empathize with people that are stretching their money and it makes it difficult. You get that big bill or whatever, but try not to hurt the people that are working for you. Now, I will say this. So, I mentioned Britain and Australia. Since tipping is not customary there, if you go on a cruise out of Britain or Australia, the tipping or the amount is worked into the cruise fare. Now, some people might be saying, well, that's the way they should do it here. Well, it is in a sense because the gratuities are added on, but they hit you afterwards. You do have the option of paying those in advance, though. So, like I said, take advantage of that option, prepay them, and you'll be taken care of. Now, from Cruise Critic, this is a quote from Cruise Critic. If you refuse to tip on principle in the U.S., you're impacting the salaries of the people who have served you well on board. And those of us that have been on cruises, we know a lot of the people that are working on board are from very poor countries. And I've talked to many people that work on the ships that, they're away from their family for 6, 7, 8, 9 months sometimes, maybe even 10, where they're away from their family and their source of income is the primary source of income for their entire family, their spouse, their children, everything else. And their pay structure is dependent upon tips. So, if you're not tipping, you're kind of taking money away from people that are really working hard and struggling. So, please, I would say, at least in the U.S., try not to do that. One thing I will say, if you do have bad service, one thing you can do, and it won't hurt everybody else that is depending upon those tips, is they have the surveys. At the end of the cruise, you get a survey, and it asks you, and they really take these surveys seriously, and it asks you, did you have service that was really good? And you can say yes, and you can list all the names of the people that the service was excellent from. They also ask you, was there any service that was really bad? So if you do have a particular person on the ship that gave you really poor service or did a bad job, you can mention them by name and they'll get reprimanded and that will be brought to the attention. And if they have enough bad marks, they could lose their position, but that's how you do, you can make an impact on somebody that treated you poorly without hurting everybody else that may have treated you well, by removing the tips, that is. Okay, so that would be my suggestion. Now, a couple other things. I am one that always purchases the alcohol package. For those of you who don't know, most of the alcohol packages are, they include tips when you purchase the alcohol package. So Cheers currently right now, it's about $52 a day. But then they add gratuities on there already. So they put 20% on the top. So it ends up being about $60 a day. So over the course of a week, you're going to spend $420 and you're already getting a 20% tip. Now, you may say, well, then I'm not going to tip because I've already tipped 20%. And that is your choice. Now, here's the thing. I go to the Alchemy Bar a lot. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Carnival, the Alchemy Bar is a bar where they put multiple ingredients into your drinks, and the drinks are fabulous. They might put 5 or 6 different ingredients, and it's really like a project that they're doing, making your drink. And you get the drink, and you're just like, wow, this is amazing. So they really put a lot of time into each and every drink. So, I know I'm already giving 20%, but I always put an extra dollar in there. So, I mean, the drinks are roughly $10 a piece. I think $11, maybe $10.95, something like that. So, you take the 20%. So I'm already giving, say, $2 per drink or whatever. But then I put another dollar on top. So it's like a nice tip, right? Over 30% tip. But the thing about it is when you tip separately at a bar on the cruise ships, it goes directly to that bar. Okay, so that's how those people that are working at that bar at that time will get those tips specifically. When you do a Cheers package or whatever, that 20% is spread out amongst all the bartenders across the ship. So if you frequent one particular bar and you want those people to get the tip specifically, whatever you sign when you sign the receipt, that when they give you the bill or whatever else like that, they're going to get that money specifically. So that's why I tip extra for my bartenders. Also, the cabin stewards, you end up getting a relationship with them, right? You see them, most people see them. Sometimes you're passing them daily, and it amazes me how they always remember your name. Hi Brad, how are you doing? Blah blah blah, and they're just always so pleasant. I say I've had good experiences, and maybe that's not the case with everybody, but they're very kind. They do a good job. I always want to tip my cabin stewards because they're taking care of your room specifically. Sometimes, hey, can I get you any ice? Do you need me to take some laundry down? They're really going above and beyond. The other thing is the cabin stewards, they work about as hard as anybody. They rarely get a day off. I mean, they're working 7 days a week, most cases. And I mean, they're putting in 12 hours. You see them in the morning, you see them in the evening, and they're working. And, a lot of times, like I said earlier, they're doing this for their families and, sending money home and everything else like that. So I know, prepaid gratuities, it's going to take care of them, but then I want to give them some extra too. Another group it's common to get tips to is the waiters and the waitresses, which obviously, I mean, if you go to a restaurant or whatever, most people are going to tip 20% in that ballpark, right, on top of whatever their bill is. So I will say on the cruise ships, it may vary a little bit now. And the reason I say that is because of anytime dining. That's relatively new to cruising. But with anytime dining, you don't have the same wait staff each and every day. I mean, they sit you at different tables. And you most likely, if you go to the main dining room, let's say 4 times out of a 7-day cruise or whatever, you're not going to sit with the same, waiters and waitresses, not even a second time, because the dining rooms are so big. So, but those of you that have, say, early dining or late dining, you're going to, have the same waiters and waitresses that entire week. So you're going to develop a relationship with those people, and they're going to kind of get to know you and become friendly with you and everything. And you're probably going to feel like, what, I need to give them extra too on top of the prepaid gratuities. And that's a situation where, you get out the envelope, the last day of the cruise, and, you take care of them as well. That's normal. So, and I mean, it can be somebody, like, for example, I don't have children, but They say, this isn't customary necessarily, but maybe you have somebody that was watching your child and they played a lot of games and your child just loved this particular person, you know, maybe you take care of them. So, I mean, you obviously can tip anybody you want to tip. You could tip the band, whatever. But the people that I mentioned, that's the most common. So again, I just kind of rambled. I went in a bunch of different directions this video, I know. But that's pretty much it. The prepaid gratuities, if you want my opinion, I would say leave them alone. Your prepaid gratuities are not just going to the cabin steward. They're not just going to the wait staff or whatever else. They're going to the laundry person. They're going to the cooks. A lot of these people that you do not see or won't see on your entire cruise, they're getting a percentage of that money. And, if you've gone to the main dining room, maybe you didn't like the waiter or the waitress, maybe they took too long to get your food out, but once the food did come, you really enjoyed it. Okay, but so you're gonna, because you didn't like the waiter or the waitress, you're gonna, remove all the tips, and the cook who made the food that you really enjoyed, also they don't get those tips now. So that's where I'm going with that. And again, I kind of rambled on this video. I didn't plan this out as well as I should have, so apologies for that. But I hope you got something out of it, and maybe you learned a little something about the Britain and Australia and the no tipping and everything else like that. And if you're somebody that's a big person that's against tipping or whatever, I apologize. It's just my opinion. Like I said, my mother for years was a waitress or whatever, and many people that are in the service industry, they get a very, very low wage, by the hour, and their pay structures is built around tips. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, that's the way it is in the cruise industry. So these people are dependent upon us to take care of them the way they take care of us, and I think that's a fair trade-off. So that's all I have for you this evening for me right now. I don't know if you're watching this in the morning, the afternoon, or the evening, but whenever you are, have a great week, the rest of the week, and we will see you next time, cruise team.
I just can't get away from a good time.